Hello, everybody, and welcome to the flashy entrance to the entertainment district. Bow, 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 bow. It's your host, Bryan, and I am super excited that Daddy Tengen is making his entrance this morning. We also have an amazing guest with us, the lovely Diana, or better known as at Rengoku Suguko on TikTok. She was also featured on Crunchyroll's 28 Days of Black Cosplay for her stunning looks with Shinobu and Doma. Welcome to the show, Diana. Go ahead, introduce yourself.
I'm Rinko from Tsukuzo. I'm a big Demon Slayer fan and a big cosplayer. Well, almost big cosplayer. I'm a part-time cosplayer. I'm a big Demon Slayer fan, big Demon Slayer content creator. Well, almost like up there, but you know where I want to be. But nice to have me here right now.
Awesome. And of course, right, we can't forget about the rest of our squad. Let's go for it.
What's up, guys? It's Emily. Happy to be here again on this kind of drizzly Sunday morning here in Phoenix. To me, that's about as flashy as it can get, so I think we're setting the mood right.
Ditto. What's up, everyone? It's your girl, Hannah. I am just getting over being sick, so I apologize if my voice randomly dies in the middle of this episode. We'll see what happens. That's not very flashy of me, but we'll be okay over here. Excited to be here, excited about the rainy weather, and excited to be jumping into Entertainment District. Yay!
I know, right? Like what a long time we've waited for this moment, right? It's like the newer season. Like I feel like every time you start a new anime, each season just gets better and better, right? Well, of course, we're here to expand upon that for our Demon Slayer world. With our flashy entrances out of the way, as this episode comes up with a sad start, reminding us what happened on the Mugen Train. Not my favorite train of thought, if you will. But when you first watched this episode, what did you expect next for our Kamaboko squad looking into the entertainment district?
Oh gosh, I knew it was going to be kind of a rough road, at least for me. It was going to be a rough road. We know what we all just saw. We can't forget it. And, something about Mugen Train that I think it sets up really well for the rest of the show is that even our Hashira are not invincible to the forces of these demons, and that it's going to be a hell of a fight moving forward if even they can't win against upper three, let alone Muzan himself. And we know that ultimately at some point that's what we're leading up to. So it's going to need to be like a lot of teamwork and a lot of training if it's going to be possible at all. So I think it sets the tone for like things to be a little bit more grim than maybe they have been moving forward.
Yeah, I was just thinking about how this show at the end of the day is very dark. It's about war, we're these humans that are up against these foes that are stronger than us because just of their inhuman abilities, and there's been so much comedy into the show, making sure we're having a good time, we're laughing, we're enjoying learning about these characters. But the start of this episode and of course the end of Mugen Train kind of reminds us what we're up against and what we're doing. And I think it's setting us up for some pretty maybe tough situations to come, and we get the feeling that each battle is going to just get harder and harder for our Kamaboko squad, and that they need to keep training. And that's exactly what they're doing. Maybe against some people's wishes because we're still injured over here. But it's just really setting us up for that undertone of war and getting us ready for what's to come, honestly.
Okay. For me, me being a Demon Slayer fan, and before even reading the manga, because before the Entertainment District even came out, like I didn't even have like the Demon Slayer manga, like I didn't know what exactly was gonna happen or whatever. So for me, before I even got the manga, I'm thinking like, okay, like what are they gonna go through? Like because they're all like going through this tough loss, losing Rengoku, one of my favorite characters. And then they have to like basically build up the confidence and build up everything, all their heart and soul to, keep going, moving forward into the entertainment district.
Yeah, and that's definitely kind of hard, right? Like, I guess when you look at it that way, like being able to like build the confidence to go back to it, right? Because like, they saw how quickly, Rengoku was to step to the plate and, take some swings against Akaza. Unfortunately, maybe the result didn't come out, but like looking at that, how daunting can that be, right? As like someone who is far less powerful than Rengoku, and you're like, yeah, he was doing his best over there. And I'm not
Right.
that good. So I definitely see
Right.
that. That's a good call out. All right. Well, looking past the start of the episode, right? Um, we see that Tanjiro has left his bed, clearly not fully recovered, and makes that visit to the Rengoku estate, right? To deliver Kyojiro's final words. What does this say about Tanjiro? And do you think you could muster the strength to follow in his footsteps to leave your bed while not fully recovered?
Um, for me, for me, it would be hard, like, to even, like, because I went through like a loss, like, a while ago, like, just to get up and move forward with the day, like, just after losing somebody that's really, really close to you, it's kind of hard. It couldn't be me at all at the end of the day, like, moving forward to, like, after a couple of days, like, it gives me, like, some time to think or whatever, and reflect on everything. But Tandro, like, he moved forward very fast, like after losing a big comrade, like a big brother and everything. And it was kind of like it motivated me like very a lot.
My boy's a little stubborn, I have to say. Yeah, I think I could not muster the strength, let alone like Diana said, just kind of going through that loss and his extreme frustration at the end of that movie too. I think his emotions were kind of a mixture of both. Like, he was very sad, like, and grieving the loss of this like big brother figure that he needs. But also, like, a lot of his emotions are coming from that frustration of not being able to help, not being able to save him. And, we're going to see that storyline continue throughout this episode. But he's also just so stubborn. Like, we can see that, like, he's not healed. Like, my kid had a stab wound in his stomach and he's just like running. Like, dude, like, come on, man. Maybe you should stay in bed. Like, the messages can happen when you're better. But it just goes to show like how much he cares about like Rengoku's words and what he said, because he wants to relay that information so bad to his family that he's willing to kind of go there when it can, who knows what could happen. He could reopen the wound. He could get really sick and get it infected, like whatever could happen. And it just goes along with his character so well. But I definitely could not do that. Like, I would be in bed just not taking it for a while.
100%. I think I would, at this stage of my life, I would be in bed reaping the benefits of modern medicine. But but maybe when I was a little bit younger, like, it was so frustrating to like feel stuck and confined when you were sick. And he is kind of at about that age, because what is he at this point? He's 15. It's like that he's a 15-year-old boy that's like been through a lot of training. And so I'm sure that he's just so frustrated with himself that, for one thing, he got hurt again, because that is kind of a trend for him. And that he couldn't really do that much to help. And like, he knew that watching the fight, as strong as he's gotten, he really wasn't strong enough to not get in the way in that fight, which is exactly what Rengoku told him. And so he didn't. And I do still think that was the right call, because he just wasn't ready. He would have died like right away. But that's frustrating to think that you've like come so far and it's still just not far enough. And it's not at this point in the story. And then on like a slightly different note, I think that part of what's driving him up and out of this bed is probably the reminder of the trauma once again. He didn't know Rengoku for that long. And even though Rengoku, in the short time that they did know him, kind of took on that big brother role, it wasn't a very long time, but seeing him die right in front of his face again is probably very reminiscent of finding his entire family slaughtered, maybe even slightly different and worse, although on a smaller scale, because he actually watched this one happen, whereas he wasn't there for his family. This one, he was there and he couldn't do anything. So I think that it's probably reminding him of what he's seen. And so that's like driving him to like go get to talk to the rest of Rengoku's family, because he did not have that chance with his. So
it's a really interesting point you brought up there. I didn't actually think of it that way, right? Like how you kind of have this parallel at the moment with, you know, looking at how he was too late for his family. Now he was here this time, but was completely powerless in helping. It's a really interesting dynamic. And I think that kind of gives you a good contrast into, you know, like you said, the growth. And I think it's really interesting just to see that Tanjiro still has the courage to possibly squelch his way out of bed with that wound. My boy, a little crazy boy, nonetheless. Of course, right? We get to see Tanjiro's famous move. And now I'm not talking about the Himo Kamikaze right here. The absolute easiest way to know that Tanjiro does not like you. Tanjiro headbutts the former flame Hashira, Shinjiro Rengoku. After hearing this newly found and lost friend be raided by someone who should be a lover and supporter of Kyojiro, do you feel Tanjiro was in the right here to headbutt his father?
For me personally, I think he was in the right because one, as a father and a former Hashira, like why would you belittle your own son about being a Hashira, about, you know, anything? And Tanjiro has every right in the world to do that because that was his friend. Like I said, his big brother, like somebody he looked up to, somebody he was just now getting to know, like somebody that was going to be his future mentor, but he ended up just, you know, losing him so quickly, like early in the story already. So I feel like Tanjiro was in the right for doing that towards Shinjiro Rengoku.
I'm going to follow up this question with another question. What's wrong with anime dads? Like, for real. I'm like, Shinjiro, you're on my list, buddy. Like, they suck. I don't know what's up with them, but he don't get me wrong. I understand that at some point he went through a loss too, probably several, because he was a former Hashira. But like, if anything, you would think that that fosters a deeper sense of appreciation for the things that you love and that are alive and human and fleeting, like your children, you would think. But he just kind of seems like he's lost his way. He's, you know, kind of just a sad drunk at this point. And so, yes, I do think Tanjiro was absolutely in the right, albeit possibly a bit of a childish approach. Probably not exactly what Rengoku would have wanted, how he would have wanted the interaction to go. But sometimes you need to get smacked around a little bit to come back to reality. So I think Team Tanjiro.
I mean, Tanjiro stan. I would also like to say, I'm pretty sure he headbutted him after he got punched in the face by him. So, I mean, like, eye for an eye here. Like, dude, come on. Like, he literally, like, he didn't make the first move here. Shinjiro was very, like, just, like, a brute with him from the start. And Tanjiro's just like, I don't know what's going on. Senjiro's like, yo, can't you see that this kid's, like, sick? Like, come on. But I also, like, I want to call out what happened at the end of season 1 with Sanemi, because it's a very similar thing happening here. And when we're seeing that side of Tanjiro, where it's like when you are insulting someone that he cares about, or you're, you know, obviously he sees red when it comes to Nezuko, but he clearly cares enough about Rengoku that that side to him is showing here as well, enough to just, like, throw caution to the wind and do the headbutt without, like, trying to talk first. But he wasn't really giving him the chance. I think this is slightly different than the situation with Sanemi, because, you know, I kind of defended Sanemi in that situation and kind of explained why I think Tanjiro's actions then were not quite right. But I think here, based off of how this entire situation happened, like I said, like, Shinjiro has punched him in the face. Like, he has every right to fight back in this situation. So this seemed more of, like, also defending himself rather than just being upset about what was going on as well. So I think that's important to call out. But Team Tanjiro here, absolutely, Shinjiro needed that knock in the head 100%.
Nice. Now, digging into what some of the words exchanged between Shinjiro and Tanjiro, we get the mention of Hino Kokyu, which translates to sun breathing in English. Certainly sounds a lot like Hinokami Kagura. Did you catch that on your first watch? Thank you, credit Hannah, for pointing that out to me.
I don't know if I gave it a ton of thought on my very first watch, but I definitely caught that the words were very similar and had similar roots. It's interesting because Hino Kokyo is sun breathing in the context of Demon Slayer, but as we know in Japan, the words can go kind of a million different ways depending on the pronunciation and all that. So it's also the cypress tree that they get the timber from, which is pretty cool. So it's, but kind of like grounded, right? Kind of like a more grounded version. Whereas like Hinokami is loosely like a god of fire. And so you can tell that there's like a difference in the advancement, I think, of the two different words. And so introducing this first one to Tanjiro and just this planning this idea in his head right now is probably akin to kind of like the level that he's at. I don't know that we're at God of Fire quite yet, but he's on his way, which is pretty cool. And the fact that he would be able to take that on when so few people even know what it is pretty badass. So I think it's really cool that we're getting to hear this word for the first time, and that we're going to get to see the progression from here in this special ability that he's the only one who seems to have.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think that it was very important that they did it this way. Even with like when it comes to the subtitles for us, Hinokami Kagura translated is Dance of the Fire God, but they didn't translate that in our subtitles. They kept it as Hinokami Kagura, and I know they've done the same in the dub as well. So clearly, like there's supposed to be a relation there. Like they clearly are making it so that, hey, you need to catch that. And I did catch it on the first watch through just because I was like, wait, did he say Hinokami what? Like I was like confused. I was like, wait, that sounds like Hinokami Kagura. And we're like getting like this explanation as to possibly what Tanjiro is doing. But I think it's a really cool way to kind of foreshadow maybe what's to come with Tanjiro and give us some of those answers that we've been wanting, that he's been wanting. Also, like Emily mentioned, like Hinokokyu does not directly translate to sun breathing itself. I know that they used it when they mentioned flame breathing earlier in season 1. I didn't catch that the first time, and when I watched through again, I noticed Shinobu said Hinokokyu. So it's loosely translated to sun breathing. I'm still learning a lot about the Japanese language to understand why it can be like sun and tree and fire and all sound the same, but I do know that some kanjis make the same sound in 200 different meanings. So yay. But it's definitely an interesting little, I think, like foreshadowing for us to catch that difference.
For me, when I first saw the episode, I'm like, hold on, he knows something like this, he knows something, but like Rengoku didn't know anything, like nothing at all, but his father already knew what was going on. But for me, I think it's gonna be like a big eye opener when Tanjiro actually like learns the Hinokami Kagura for us, because like that kind of like goes with his like family, the the earrings and everything. So it kind of like stuck out to me like in the first episode, because I'm just like, oh my god, like he knows something, but Tanjiro really wants to know something.
Yeah, and I think especially looking towards season 3, I think a lot of people are going to be very happy with the progression of Tanjiro's knowledge of what these secrets are and what they come to be in the very end. So definitely a very important detail that was planted very early, and that definitely is going to help our little boy along his journey. All right. After the quarreling is finally stopped, Tanjiro gets a chance to actually chat with Sanjiro. Sanjiro says thank you for what he said about Kyojuro. He reveals some further information about the books of the former Flame Hashira. What did you think of this moment as someone helping Tanjiro? What other things did you notice about this scene?
For me, I noticed Sindro like going through a loss of his brother. I felt like for me instantly like he's looking at to Tandro as a brother. Like, hey, like maybe this can be like my next, brother since I don't have, nobody right there for me now. Um, for me, I think it's gonna be like a big, like for the long run, like a big relationship between them two. So I'm really excited to see like Sindro and Tandro like working together and stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I really like to see someone helping Tanjiro since he's always the one doing the helping. And it seems like when someone does want to help him, they, um, yeah. Sorry, this is how this is how I cope with this kind of stuff, okay?
Man.
I'm sorry, I have to make jokes about it, otherwise
otherwise I'll fall apart.
Oh no.
No, it's really good to see him like receiving that help and how much Senjuro wants to help him. He's barely known him, but he's obviously understood that Tanjiro is an honorable person and a caring person that deserves to know what's happening. And I think that goes along with what we've seen in the story for so long, that he can see that Tanjiro is just like a good kid. And I think it's really important to see Senjuro like obviously Tanjiro can't replace Kyojuro in his life at all, but I think it's so good for him to have Tanjiro kind of pop up right after this happens and push back against their father and be able to tell stories of how he was protected by Kyojuro and that sort of thing. So I thought it was just a really special moment, and I think it's something that Senjuro needs and it's something that Tanjiro needs. It's kind of a different position for Tanjiro to be in. So well, not really different because he's being a big brother like he always is, but it's good to see his relationships building with other characters and someone who's not in the Demon Slayer Corps. So really excited about that.
There's something that's a little bit bittersweet about this scene, of course. Senjuro has obviously lost his older brother. He's seeing probably some qualities in Tanjiro that he recognizes from his sibling, even though he's never met Tanjiro before. And knowing that this was somebody who was getting ready to be a Tsugoku under him is probably quite melancholy, but I'm sure that anybody in that position would really want to help the person that's coming to not even necessarily get that information right off the bat, but just to bring the unfortunate news and the last words, which is a heavy duty to bear. So I'm sure that they're just like extraordinarily appreciative because without Tanjiro, they may have never gotten that closure. I think that the thing that makes it so bittersweet is how young he is. He's so little. He's just a kid, but like that's the world that is set up here is like, it doesn't matter who you are. Everyone's going to experience loss at the hands of these demons until they are eradicated. And it's just a little bit worse, I think, seeing it happen to somebody so young. So very bittersweet.
Big sad. But also, right, part of that scene, you get to see the former pages of the Flame Hashira books, and they're all ripped out as well. So a fun little fact. And Senjuro, I think, kind of takes on what his older brother would have wanted him to do at that point to restore those books and then provide them to Tanjiro, right? Because at first, I always think to the very first scene where we finally get to actually meet Rengoku in Mugen Train, and he's like, I do not know anything about the Hinokami Kagura, but that is very cool. Your dad was able to breathe all night. I'm happy for him. Like he was like, I don't know anything and I can't help you, but that's cool. And I'm sure like had he had the book, he would have been like, oh yes, I have this book here, read all of the chapters. Like it would have been great, but hey, it's not the way the cookie crumbled, unfortunately. But Once he finally leaves the Rengoku estate, he makes his way back to the Butterfly Mansion. Nearly on his deathbed, he finally makes it back alive and starts his training again. And of course, we get a fun little training montage with the entire Kamaboko squad. It's a nice break from the action, right?
For me, I thought it was kind of like kind of interesting just to see them like training again, getting some type of motivation. And then the whole thing with me after that, the whole thing with Tandro getting chased around about getting chased around about his sword getting broken. I think that was a big moment for me because I'm just like, oh my God, you could hear me in the house like laughing so hard. I'm like, oh my God, that was like the funniest moment right now.
It was pretty good. Man, he just can't keep that sword together, can he? He just like and they say that like comes with a certain level of skill, up for debate. We're going to hear about that and something yet to be determined in the brand new season that's about to come out. But it's just like it really is needed. I think we've had like a lot of heaviness in these last couple of episodes, and so we just need like our stupid little idiot squad to have a little bit of some slapstick comedy, or else, like Hannah just said, we're going to fall apart at the seams. We need to see them being dumb 15-year-old kids, like briefly. And they very seldom get to. So it is a nice little breather from all the action.
Hagen Izuka showing up is so just like hilarious to me because Tanjiro looks like he's about to pass out on the side of the road. Like he's like, do I have a fever? Things are going black. Like I'm like, oh my gosh, he's like literally about to die. No, okay. Instead, he has to run away for hours on end from Hagen Izuka chasing him with knives. I'm dead. It was a really nice break, and it's something that like feels so out of place. Like you would think it's so out of place, but the show does it so well. Like we're like literally crying over what's going on with Tanjiro at the Rengoku residence. We just saw Shinjiro like break down, and then we move right into this, and it's totally natural because this is the way the show is. And it's good to see them just being silly, talking about food, and also interesting that we find out that 4 months goes by, which is kind of a long time for them to be like still like kind of healing and training. So it's kind of nice to see like how much time is going by so that we know exactly how much time passes throughout the show. So it just gave us a little nice fun moment. And as Emily said, it's nice to see the Kamaboko squad just be kids. Like, yes, they're training and yes, they're going out on these missions, but they deserve to still have that fun. They deserve to have those laughs. They deserve to just be silly and be friends. And it's really nice to see that.
Yeah. I especially liked in the like how they were all like super ripped and jacked at that point when they were all running around. It was like, God dang, man, like how hard do you have to be exercising on a daily basis to be that defined? My Lord.
My sister audibly gasped when they were all shirtless. She was like, wait, they're all muscular? I'm like, yeah.
Right.
All right. And then, of course, right, once the montage is over, we get to see the man we've all been waiting for, Mr. Tengen. However, I wasn't a super fan of him at first, just snatching Aoi up and trying to walk away with her. Do you remember your first impressions of the sound, Hashira?
I do think flashy is the right word. I mean, in hindsight, we love him, but at first we're like, what is up with this guy? Like, his outfit is a lot. He's a bit boisterous as well, which is like a little bit weird compared to the other Hashira that we've met, right? He's huge. He's like an enormous freaking guy. He's like, what is he, like the second biggest after Gyome? He's like a big boy. And so he makes quite an entrance, although he does it very, very quickly. So we can see that he's kind of got like speed on his side and definitely flashy. Like that is just like synonymous with his name at this point. But I agree, did not really love him snatching Aoi up and like some of the weird stuff that happened there. And that's probably just a cultural difference, which I can totally appreciate. There is still some stuff in anime that makes me shake my head a little. Demon Slayer's not immune from that. It's not. There's still some stuff, and that's just how it is. And that's okay. I still enjoy the show. And there can be some moments where I simply look away. So
for me personally, seeing Tengen for the first time, I'm just like, who is this guy? Who is this trying to take these little girls away? Who is this pervert first off? And then like for Tanjiro, Zenitsu, and Nosuke just to go against him, like, oh, like he's trying to take these girls away. We gotta step up to him. So for me, instantly I'm just like, man, who is this guy? He's a pervert. But when you get to know him, like I'm just like, oh man, he's like a flashy guy. So I gotta get to know him.
I hated him. I remember sitting in front of the TV and I was like, this is the next Hashira we get after who we just had? What? I was so like, I don't like this guy. He's doing weird stuff. He's being really mean. He's kind of wild and really cocky. And just like, I was like 100% like, as always, on Tanjiro's side during this, being like, I don't accept you as a Hashira. Like, you're a brute. Like, yeah. It's in my opinion, a very rough introduction. And I think that they meant to do that to kind of contrast how we met Rengoku and just how like we instantly fell in love with him. Like he became everyone like anime world's sweetheart. Everyone loves Rengoku. And now we kind of have this really rough introduction. Like, okay, this guy's kind of a, you know, I'm not going to use, I'm not going to use the word I'm thinking of, but he's not a great guy from what we can see. But maybe that's going to invite us to have a wonderful journey with, you know, the story to come. So I hated him though.
Yeah. Yeah, not my fave thing, but hey, I guess everybody has their flaws, right? And then of course, right, we do get the blessing of seeing Tanjiro headbutt someone twice, or attempting at least this time. And of course, Tengen swiftly dodges that headbutt, but Tanjiro still stands his ground, and we get a truly flashy entrance from the rest of the Kamaboko squad. Do you think Tengen somewhat surprised that these small clowns are giving some serious energy?
Yeah, he was definitely surprised. Like his eyes were wide. He was like, what? Because he literally just called Tanjiro, what was it, like drab or something like that, like so unflashy. And their entrance was definitely flashy. Like it was very like, here we are, we're a cool trio. But I think they're already kind of surprising him, and I think they're going to continue to do that. And there's a reason why he so quickly was like, all right, never mind, I'll take you three. Clearly, like they had the skills, they wanted to do it. So I think they're going to continue to surprise him.
For me personally, I think instantly like them standing up to Tengen was an eye-opener for him, just to like, oh, who are these kids? Like, who are these little kids? To me as a Hashira, I think they really are gonna surprise them after the one episode and stuff. Just how they are, like funny, you know, loud and everything, and Zenitsu always crying, so they're gonna really surprise him.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think that Tengen's being a little bit standoffish. You know, this is another Hashira that we haven't seen since the end of season 1, which was like the trial, right? And so we all know that their impression of Tanjiro and Nezuko and the whole carrying a demon around on your back, fighting when you're supposed to be killing all of them, was not like a super popular idea with all of the Hashira. And so even though Tanjiro has proven himself now to Rengoku's not there to be able to speak up for him. However, something that does speak for itself is the fact that they're all still alive. And even though they didn't necessarily take on Akaza head on, they still helped in the fight with Enmu, and they're relatively low ranked at this point, and they all made it out alive. So I think that whether Tengen wants to verbally acknowledge it or not, he kind of knows that these three are already a little bit different and wants to treat them as children. And while they are children and they can be a little bit goofy, we see that they can very quickly turn serious in their little flashy entrance, which was so cool to see the first time. They're going to keep surprising him. And I think that he, maybe surprise isn't even the right word. I think he kind of already knows. He's just going to help shape them and polish the skills that they already have. But he's going to be a little bit standoffish and flashy about it.
Fair. All right. Now, what I did really like about this episode is that we got the 2 opening scenes. Can't forget about our opening scenes, right? We got the end of the episode, which is like the true opening for the season. And then we got that like temporary episode that showed a bunch of foreshadowing. What did you think of this small touch to the episode?
For me, just to see them after the Mugen Train and just them just moving forward, I think it's very like inspiring just to see that. And then the new opening, just the entertainment district, the whole flashy vibe, and meeting Tengen and his wives, and meeting the upper moons and everything. So that was kind of like amazing to me and very like heartfelt.
Agreed. I think that it was really important for this episode, knowing what we had just come out of, and that we needed to like change the mood kind of quickly here, because this is a lot of information in a relatively quick little episode. And so, we start off with like the remaining heaviness of everything that just happened in the Mugen Train. And then we transition and we end with something that's a little bit more upbeat and with our new flashy squad. And I think that they handled it really beautifully, and it sets the tone for the rest of the entertainment district as well. And that maybe this one's going to be still a fight for sure, but there's something a little bit flashier, a little bit more positive to expect, hopefully, from the rest of this little season.
Yeah, agreed. I think, first of all, the little opening that we got at the beginning of the episode with Kid Muzan walking around was very interesting and kind of showed us a lot of what this arc is going to be about. And also remind us that he's just like this expert shapeshifter that can do these crazy things that like look like a kid. And we didn't even figure out it was him until Akaza showed up and was like, oh, that's Muzan. Cool. All right. But I will say this OP that we get at the end of the episode is my personal favorite. And what's funny is the first time I heard it, I didn't even really like it that much. It grew on me so fast though, but it's very flashy and it's very fitting. And it's a great way to end the episode. I think Demon Slayer does this a lot, where the first episode of the season actually ends with the OP. So it kind of sets the tone for like the hype of the new season and the excitement. And I think it's a really good placement on their part to do it that way in the first episode. So I think it's just going to show us how flashy of a season we're about to get.
Definitely. I liked with like the little temporary opening. I don't know if you all caught this, but with the train leaving, and then like you saw like the actual aerial pan to the entertainment district, I felt like it really symbolized like the closing of that old chapter coming into the new, and it was very like easy to pick up. There are also a lot of good like foreshadowing moments. You get to see some pink and orange belts in that temporary opening a lot, so that was kind of cool. A lot of different stuff going on there, and of course, right now that Zankyo Sanka is just a bop for everyone involved. Like you hear it and you're like, yes. Like there was something about it at first. I was like, the piano kind of struck me off. I was like, and then I was like, bam, 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 like I could just kind of jam. But of course, right, we always got to wrap our episodes with our favorite moments. No one is going to be surprised by me saying my favorite moment of today's episode was 1,000% learning that Zenitsu can finally go on missions alone, and he complains just a little bit less about doing so.
Oh, We love little Zenitsu. We haven't talked about him a whole lot lately. Hopefully that'll get to change.
Right.
My favorite moment, I think, is probably the interaction between Tanjiro and Senjuro. I guess that's not really a moment. That's kind of like a big chunk of the episode, but I do think that there's something really beautiful about Tanjiro being the one to get to deliver some of Rengoku's last words, and Rengoku's last words for Senjuro being like, follow the path that you think is the best one, when I'm sure that he felt a lot of pressure to maybe follow in his father and his brother's footsteps, even if that's not necessarily his first inclination or his number one skill. I don't know if we've met another character exactly like Senjuro in the show so far, but he kind of reminds me a little bit, for those who also watch, he reminds me a little bit of an Armin character from Attack on Titan. Like, he's really smart and can think quickly and on his feet, and he probably would make a good Hashira in that regard, but he might not be like as fast or as agile as some of the others. So I think having that reaffirmed for him that he can still kind of fight in his own way was a really beautiful, sad moment, because while he needed to hear that, he probably really needed to hear it from his big brother, and he won't get to. But Tanjiro's the next best thing.
Emily, stop. I'll kind of piggyback off of that. There's a couple moments from this episode that we actually didn't talk about. I do really quick want to call out Akaza and Muzan. I thought that was a very interesting part of the episode to see him treat Akaza that way right after we see Akaza do what he did, and Muzan just kind of pointed his finger at him, and like, I don't know exactly what happened, but it was like a shockwave. So Muzan's really powerful. And we see that Tanjiro's kind of like haunting him a little bit with his little monologue at the end of Mugen Train. So interesting. But personally, my favorite moment kind of goes along with what Emily said, is when Senjuro gives Tanjiro Rengoku's sword hilt. That moment brings me to tears every time. And it's partially because of like, you know, what is to come and what we can expect from that. But he just met Tanjiro, you know, like he literally just met him, and he's giving him this like extremely like sentimental piece from his older brother to him, his older brother that he literally just lost. And he wants to give it to Tanjiro. I think it says how selfless Senjuro is and how much he like can care for someone so quickly, and he understands like what Tanjiro can do, and that he might have this like kind of firepower, so it might work for him. But also like Tanjiro's like refusal at first, but kind of giving up and just, you know, accepting it, probably realizing how much he actually wants it. It's just such a beautiful moment, and I think kind of sealed the deal for me of how like this friendship could be really important to come, and how much Senjuro needs that. So it's like the moment that of the episode that brings me to my knees every time.
Definitely.
Okay. For me, I have basically two moments. The whole thing with Muzan and Akaza, that kind of like made me kind of happy, because I'm just like, well, you killed Rengoku, that's what you get. Now Muzan is punishing you. You think you're all that because you killed one Hashira. So that kind of like stuck out to me, because I'm just like, this is what you deserve, because you think you just like you're upper rank. You think you do what you want to do because you killed one Hashira. And then like the second moment was what Hannah and Emily was saying, the whole thing with Senjuro and Tanjiro, that kind of like made me cry a lot. And you know, my husband basically like teases me, because like I cried about it all the time, because I'm just like, that's a heartfelt moment to me. Like losing someone that it says a lot, just to have somebody there for you like after like a hard moment. So he teases me all the time, because I cry over Rengoku, because he was like, oh my god, like I know that's not your favorite character, but please like stop crying about him all the time.
Of course, right? Like it's so hard because I think the way they set Rengoku's character up was like to immediately like him, and they knew that they were immediately going to crush all of us. Like 45 minutes. I mean, like originally like 45 chapters later, I guess, if you will, and then it was 45 minutes later in the movie. So we love to
Right.
see it.
They knew
But-
what they were doing.
Right.
All right. Well, any final call outs before we wrap up the episode for today?
Well, only thing I can really say, just follow me on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. Like, you have my handles on, the TikTok thing, the link tree. So, the only thing I can really say, just follow me on my funny skits about Tengen, Rengoku. It's more to come, like later on, and follow my interesting cosplays.
Of course, right? And she is at Rengoku Suguko on TikTok. Of course, there is so much more that she does outside of just TikToks, right? She also does her cosplays. And also, your Mirko cosplay, like, that is A1. I really like that one from you. You definitely give me very, like, crisp, and I love what she did this season in My Hero, too. She was so strong this season. That was a really good one.
Yeah.
I like to say, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Hannah. No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say your Doma cosplay, like I saw it and I was like, damn.
Thank you. The whole thing with the contacts, oh my God. You should have seen me, like almost hour, 2 hours, like trying to put the contacts in. And I'm like, I'm not gonna get this. So I'm sitting there, I'm like sitting on the floor in the bathroom, like, I'm not gonna get this. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, like, and then I put in the next one and I'm like, oh my God, I can't see anything. So how am I gonna do? I'm gonna do these TikToks, I'm gonna do these pictures, I'm gonna do anything. And thank God my husband was there. And then I'm like, I'm looking at some of the pictures and I'm like retaking them and I'm like, oh my God, like, and he's helping me with the makeup. And I'm just like, I can't see anything. Like, I only can see like little parts of like stuff. And I'm just like, oh my God, thank God he was there though. But the contact thing, but thank you for the whole Doma thing that cosplay was the hardest that I had to do. Like, that was my first time wearing contacts and probably not my last time because, I got another cosplay coming soon, the Tengen one. So I'm kind of excited about that one.
Nice.
Hell yeah. Well, of course, you're going to want to follow her for more content and follow her for whatever comes next in her cosplay array. But of course, right, we are the Hashira Half Hour. It's been an awesome episode today. Don't forget to follow us on TikTok at Hashira Half Hour and Instagram. We hope you have a great rest of your day and umai.
My.
Oh my.
Oh my.